It's pretentious as fuck to use 87 words.
I have a question. Do you realize that the 1911, which you are gripped around as firmly as you possibly could be, is not cocked? Do you realize that? You've got an uncocked gun in your hand. You've got a dick in a condom, and you claim like that's dick in a condom. That's your avatar.
What? Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Wow.
That was fun.
This outburst didn't come out of nowhere. There was a series of events which led to Aurini making a fool of himself. Who is Davis Aurini? What's the drama? Why should I care? All relevant questions that hopefully will be answered. Davis M.J. Aurini is a Canadian with an interest in history, philosophy, and the like. Received training in the reserves, wrote a Fallout-inspired novel, and wrote a short film which he narrated and played a character called Virium Maximus, which sounds like a gladiator in a porno. His biggest enemy, biggest dickus. As for the book, as I walk these broken roads, people will rate it based on how they feel about Aurini. The most honest reviews will tell you it's okay. He also traveled in manosphere circles. The basic idea of the manosphere was self-improvement. The most well-known aspect, probably the pickup artists and men going their own way, or MGTOW. At one point, he started calling himself a monarchist. By his own admission, he was drawn to such a system as a way of standing out. As uncomfortably close to monarchy as the political system actually is in the West, specifically North America. We had the Bush and Clinton dynasties passing along the office. And in Canada, Justin Trudeau became the Prime Minister at first, primarily because he was riding his father's coattails. Even so, the monarchist thing, it's a little bit try-hard.
Give me 5 of the guys from that movie. Give me 5 of the guys from Fight Club, and I'd be the King of Canada within 5 years at the outset.
There were a number of other personalities involved, and the 5th guy is somewhat peripheral to the larger story, but I'm doing a thing, work with me. Besides, like his literary counterpart, it's possible the creator of the universe doesn't know what the deal is with Tom Bombadil either. Aurini was part of a circle of people on YouTube who would often be guests on each other's streams. The Bet Club was geared toward nerd stuff. Matt Forney, as I recall, is more on-the-ground kind of guy with the political reporting. Artistic Layman, or Luke, typically helped out with the technical stuff. Pastor Tom, or Captive Thoughts, as he may be found on YouTube, trained Calvinist pastor. And John Steele, a history enthusiast and Odinist, also possibly in witness protection. Gamergate was rooted in a clique of insufferable hipsters trying to dominate the indie gaming market, and it all came under scrutiny when one particular indie darling, carelessness on her part, caused a meltdown in her personal life. One of the things which make the social justice crowd especially obnoxious is the lack of boundaries. And this cancel culture thing, which we all hate now, suddenly, that was rooted in the call-out culture, which came from these kinds of people. Hence the unprofessionalism as they blur the work and the personal, and why everything has to be saturated with the messaging. People can complain the catalyst wasn't high-minded enough, but the nature of that crowd made it inevitable personal feelings would get the ball rolling. Since most official platforms banned even civil discussion of the subject, this caused a lot of independent sources to get a massive signal boost as various groups coalescing around the Gamergate banner shared blog posts, videos from smaller channels, and so on. It wasn't long after Gamergate started developing into a proper subculture that word was going around about a crowdfunded documentary called the Sarkeesian Effect. This was a collaboration of Davis Aurini and Jordan Owen, a Goldbart who made a name for himself with videos challenging Anita Sarkeesian's arguments made from his bed like a fat Jean Paul Marat. In the off chance you don't know who she is, Anita Sarkeesian's this activist complaining about sexism in video games as basically an older iteration of Greta Thunberg. Activists supposedly speaking truth to power, really speaking for the power down to us little people. Though, even if you count the donations from rich friends, Sarkeesian still had to hustle for every dollar, telling people games are bad and we're bad for enjoying them. Thunberg gets everything handed to her, even a puff piece of documentary, and that has to stick in Sarkeesian's craw. Sources estimate the budget for the Sarkeesian Effect to be as much as $50,000. Part of the sales pitch was explaining Sarkeesian to regular folks like your grandma, and plenty of donors thought this would be the definitive takedown of Sarkeesian. Footage of the interview with Jack Thompson seemed pretty convincing it was a serious project. The reasons for the falling out between Owen and Aurini amount to he said, she said. Aurini's claims consist of Owen inexplicably not liking him, or Aurini mocking Owen's chances of getting with a lady. Owen's arguments more about money, accusing Aurini of trying to milk the project, and Aurini wanting to pursue an assertion that Anita Sarkeesian had been sexually abused by her father. I'd argue the project falling apart was a blessing in disguise. For starters, if they went with that claim, they risk losing their shirts in a defamation suit by Sarkeesian's father. Never mind serving Sarkeesian a nice tall glass of vindication and having an albatross to put around the necks of all her reasonable critics. The people who went hardest on Aurini were already inclined to dislike him, and those more aligned with his politics, they could qualify Aurini's mistakes with the blame going both ways, or they could just completely scapegoat Owen. The split between the two also provided a ready excuse for the project failing to meet unrealistic expectations. In the end, the documentary was a pretty pointless exercise since it consisted mainly of interviewing e-celebs, which could have been done in a live stream. And it was Sarkeesian who really took herself out. Like Amy Schumer, she broke up with the boyfriend who wrote her material, and so she got lazy and boring. Still, considering how others, signal boosted by Gamergate, imploded, Aurini walked away just fine.
Hey there, folks. Those of you who follow me on Twitter know that I recently picked up this beautiful little girl, in accordance with the scriptures.
Drama is the lifeblood of the internet. Though aside from constantly relitigating the Reformation, things had been pretty quiet in Aurini's circle of friends. He made an adult conversion to Roman Catholicism, and there was plenty of zeal to convert on his part. Though I suppose, for Catholics in particular, they have to hold firmly on certain points because Protestants consistently going to heaven. That raises some questions about what they're bringing to the table. Sometime after Internet's blood sports became a proper format, Beckloff got the idea to try his own spin on the formula. Who wouldn't? Read super chats for thousands of dollars while guests yell at each other. His take on it was to host ideological debate. Theological debates, which sounds more substantive than usual blood sports fare. The first debate he wanted to host was where Mary fit in Christianity. Roman Catholicism places a special emphasis on Mary, while Protestants generally have a more subdued attitude towards her. Pastor Tom was arguably a natural choice to represent Protestant thinking. However, Beckloff's reach was less than it was at his channel's peak. Twitter banning him played a part, and trad Catholic types more likely to snub him. So his options were somewhat limited. In retrospect, getting Davis to represent the Catholic perspective wasn't the best idea. Even so, the There's Something About Mary stream started well enough as both participants were prepared for debating Mary. They were not as prepared when the debate shifted to sola fide, and the whole thing went off the rails as Aurini went on a tangent about wanting to unify with Protestants. The Catholic Church wants you back. We want to be brothers. The sincerity of those statements came into question when Aurini hopped onto a stream with John Steele and took some uncharitable jabs at Protestants, for example, claiming Protestants follow after the world, have no theology, no respect for history or authority. When Pastor Tom responded to this in video format, he focused on the truthfulness of Aurini's assertions. Looking back, he wished he had instead oriented his criticism towards Aurini's inconsistency, calling for unity while talking to the Protestants, then taking pot shots when a non-Protestant audience was those he was talking to. Aurini's response was to disavow Tom, Luke, and Beckloff. Yeah, some people took sides right away, but I think, or at least want to think, where their audiences overlapped most waited to see if there might be some reconciliation down the line. Shortly after falling out, Aurini found a regular guest host in one Hadrun, a heathen witch. And it hadn't been long that she and Aurini knew each other before she was made an integral part of the show. This incident may or may not be relevant, but included for the sake of completeness. Aurini hosted on his channel a debate between Matt Forney and Jim Goad. I can't say that it wouldn't have flown off the rails if Aurini had been a better moderator, but the debate went from 0 to what the hell was that really fast. Funny, that was closer to blood sports than anything Beckloff organized. Inexplicably, that debate had a part 2 on the Irony Bros program, The Weekly Sweat. Then, in the dead of one Friday morning in October, something hilarious happened. Beckloff started a brief stream in which John Steele related a falling out between himself and Davis. Normally, it would be a bit of a bummer, but the tone of the feud between Beckloff and Aurini was drastically changed by the introduction of a new character.
Who is Bervoker?
Berserker, I think is how you pronounce it. He is. I don't know him directly. He is a. Well, who he is? He's a priest of hell. No, I mean that's his title apparently. Hell spelled with one L. Anyway, so where was I? I forget where I cut out on you there.
Yeah, you have to appear in front of the I guess the council or something.
Yeah, the council. the council apparently.
Okay.
And I have to appear before them. And I must apologize for my behavior. Recognize her authority as a Vela, and make a solemn promise to never do this again. Yada yada yada. Anyway, a bunch of bullshit. I said back to Davis, what the oh yeah, and I'm never allowed to be a member of the free folk movement, whatever the fuck that is. I never wanted to be a part of it. That's something that I never asked to be a part of it. Religion is a little more private to me. Anyway, so I spoke to Davis and, spoke with, because he sent this in text, and I was like, let me speak to you, motherfucker. This is bullshit.
John Steele's personality can be abrasive even to longtime friends, so it didn't take long for Hadrun to have a bee in her bonnet. This was made all the more comical as she dispatched her little manservant to rant to Aurini, to rant to Steele, all the while trying to sound like a big boy. Another layer of hilarity was added by Aurini playing up the idea that the Free Folk presented a danger to Steele, which was supernatural in nature and not just not being allowed in their fruity little club. In a matter of days, I believe it was that Aurini contacted Beckloff and they spoke on a stream in which Aurini brazenly love-bombed Beckloff, effectively forcing a reconciliation which could not last as none of the original points of contention were addressed. Further, this dubious end to hostilities didn't quell curiosity about the Free Folk, who came off as increasingly ridiculous, creepy, and weird. This was further compounded by behavior best described as evasive whenever basic questions were brought up, especially if you didn't promise to give them money first. checking out their website was criticized as unfair on account of the site being unfinished. But it's the most readily available official source, far preferable to sifting through hours of boring live streams, and their website being unfinished is their problem, as it's how they presented themselves to the rest of the world. On the site itself, we see the members consist of Hadroon, who's named herself after a goat with teats which flow with mead. I'm not sure if that's a roundabout way of talking about Baphomet. It just had rune in it, so she liked the sound of it, or something about fluent teats speaks to her on a personal level. Bulwarker and whatever the hell that other guy's name is. Those are both alternative names for Odin. I'm a little mad at the 30 seconds of Googling I had to do in order to find out how unimaginative those two are naming themselves. Though it is noteworthy that Bulwarker means evil worker. Dude, stick to doing good. You have no talent for evil. You couldn't do gay Discord ops right. Depending on who you ask, soy is actually a quality ingredient for candles, or has no objective benefits over other materials. Even so, the symbolism of using soy for your marked up candles is enough to be laughable. As for the content of the site itself, note the use of Old English when Modern English would be sufficient and even faster, since you wouldn't have to pause for the translations. What makes us all the more pretentious is the fact that free folk are Americans. We have deep roots in England, but this "we was Vikings" garbage isn't part of the American tradition. Any kind of religious movement headed by Americans which isn't Christian should be a major red flag. This idealization of Nordic traditions is just Orientalism with a different hat. As the dive into the free folk went deeper, the further Aurini was revealed to be entrenched in the organization, and not just letting his co-host plug her thing in exchange for free work. I think for a lot of us, there was a worry that Aurini was vulnerable after breaking friendships, and in classical formula had been swept off his feet, and they were exploiting him. Now, their whole business model seemed to be trying to sell franchises. Some say multi-level marketing scam, but I mean, maybe they wanted to sell a McPagan on every corner. I don't know. The tenuous peace with Aurini eroded into open hostilities, yet again, claiming that looking into the free folk was about making them look ridiculous. Which is comical, as they excelled at that with no help from any of us. There were no shortage of tradcaths who initially sided with Aurini because they saw the beef as Protestant versus Catholic. Over time, even they started to see the free folk as something unseemly and suspicious. When Aurini's channel suddenly disappeared, that threw a curveball. I mean, one prime suspect was Jim Goad, on the theory that he was trying to cover his tracks after a moment of clarity over how bad he looked in that debate with Matt Forney. There was suspicion that Davis did it himself, especially in light of how he used the loss of his channel as proof of persecution. Since Forney had an issue with his channel around the same time, the latter seems less likely. However, there is proof Aurini got back his channel and for all practical purposes privated the whole thing. Okay, this is going to be a very high-tech operation here, and there's no thing.
Video unavailable. This video is private. There's no direct link to this why black people fail thing. Link to a tweet which has a link to one of his.
In light of this, Aurini's reach was greatly diminished as he failed to carry over much of his YouTube subs to his Twitch channel. Became an in-joke that one can measure their own audience in Aurini's. There really weren't much in the ways of events or defining moments. Beckloff had a few streams riffing off earlier Aurini streams. There was that one time Beckloff stream sniped Aurini, but in itself wasn't particularly eventful. The Free Folk did start their own YouTube channel, wasn't much to bounce off of aside from their interest in theories which justify why they need to run society. Eventually, they had a stream where they declared victory, then turned tail and ran from the handful of nerds and autists who laughed them off the internet. Well, there was one event.
Hey, caller, what's on your mind?
I'm wondering if you recognize that time early in the stream when you walked right into it with all the grace of a drunk eating his own vomit.
Well, please elaborate.
Right,
I'm all ears.
first 20...
And put your headphones in so there's not an echo, for fuck's sake.
Oh, for fuck's sakes, no, I'm not going to. Do you want me on or not?
Go ahead. You have the floor.
Early on, I said that Beckloff is acting like a histrionic, at which point you paused the stream and said, "Good Lord, I was the peacemaker between you and Jordan Owen." At which point you unpaused the stream and I said, "He's acting like a histrionic," which is the person that pretends to be the fucking peacemaker while starting an argument between everybody.
I started the argument between you and Owen?
You what? Hey, dipshit. I was talking about how you were starting arguments between myself and Pastor Tom. You are a histrionic. You like the argument. You like seeing the world burn. You paused the thing and said, hey, I'm not histrionic. I'm the peacemaker. Then you unpaused and I literally said, the histrionic pretends to be the peacemaker. You literally walked right into that. How
you called me a peacemaker before, Davis.
You backstabbing piece of shit that does nothing but start drama and start gossip and wants to see the world burn. And you fucking wish you were one of these, the internet blood sports. You are so envious of these people that get to watch other people fight one another to the death. And you call yourself a Christian? You take the Lord's name in vain?
Davis, you joined a pagan cult.
It's not a cult, dumbass. What you are doing is a cult. Do what I say or else we will endlessly ridicule.
When the fuck have I said that?
Attack you. That's a cult. You dumb fuck. You godless freak.
You are in a pagan cult, Davis.
Davis is in a pagan
All I
cult.
did was read the site, and that was damning enough.
Yeah, I know, because you're illiterate. Oh my god, they use a word I didn't know. Oh, it must be a cult. Call Encyclopedia Dramatica.
Yeah, it's goofy to use a bunch of old English words. It's pretentious as fuck. It's pretentious as fuck to use 87 words.
I have a question. Do you realize that the 1911, which you are gripped around as firmly as you possibly could be, is not cocked? Do you realize that? You've got an uncocked gun in your hand. You've got a dick in a condom, and you claim like that's dick in a condom. That's your avatar.
What? Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Wow.
That was fun.
That was the last time Aurini called in on Beckloff's stream. Jabs are still made in Aurini's general directions. Dunking on him isn't on the list of priorities. A furry called Flubby made an excellent game in RPG Maker called FW3, a pretentious RPG. Had a good story. Difficulty curve after the first dungeon was a little lopsided, and I still have to say the first dungeon was the best part, hands down. The repeat item use, that was a good idea that should have been fleshed out more, I think. And there is an archive channel which was made to preserve Aurini's various recordings for posterity. I also got a bunch of the footage from that channel, and I stole Argent's joke about Tom Bombadil's news. So major props to the Sigma Supreme channel. I've made a bunch of notes and scratched them out, trying to find the right way to end this, a moral or lesson to draw from this that wasn't just taking jabs at Aurini, but I honestly couldn't find a way to end this without going in hard on him, and he's been his own worst enemy in all of these instances. So honestly, I think it's just best to let it end it in his own words.
Deus Vult. Aurini out.